Hello, my name is Matthew Bellisario. Welcome to the BellisarioSonic YouTube channel. I have a very special guest with me here today, jazz singer John Dokes. So thank you very much, John, for coming on the channel. I'm excited to talk to you today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
Good to
I'm
be here.
excited. So how does a fan of comic books, working at Marvel, working at VH1, you've had quite a successful career before you've gotten to be a jazz singer. You worked for AccuWeather. Got into marketing. I see that you went to California State University at Northridge. You were originally going to look at accounting, but then I guess you got into marketing, and so you had quite a successful marketing career. From an artistic standpoint, though, I see that you grew up, or you were born in Little Rock, Arkansas, but you grew up in Oakland, California, and it looks like you moved to New York, and now you're in Chicago. But it looks like your dad was into music, or maybe both your parents were. You can fill us in there. But he used to listen to Nat King Cole around the house, and he was in an R&B band in the Bay Area in the '70s, from what I read. You were a swing dancer, which I find interesting, and then you started singing at these, I guess, at these engagements, and one of your friends evidently, I guess, loved your singing and wanted you to kind of pursue that. So you have now 4 jazz albums under your belt. This is one of them here, your latest one, which we'll talk about. So that's just a little bit of background, and maybe you can fill us in on the details here.
How did you find out all this stuff about me? Where you?
I just search the internet. I always try to find out
Inter,
about.
the interwebs. I keep
Yeah,
reading about these interwebs.
and you never know what's true or not. You know, they always have those Wikipedia interviews, true or false or whatever. So you can
Yeah.
kind of fill us in there. But thank you so much for coming
I think
on.
most of that is true, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
Yeah. I should point out that the friend you mentioned is Dawn Hampton, and more than a friend, she's a legend. So I have to sort of say that right off the bat because I don't know if she ever truly got her full due, but she got a lot of praise, but I'm not sure if she got her full due. So Dawn Hampton was she's Slide Hampton's sister,
Okay.
and she was in the family band when she was younger, and went on to be she was played saxophone, and then she went on to become a cabaret singer, opened up for Barbra Streisand, and then she went on to become a sort of worldwide Lindy Hopper dancer. And so that's where I met her. And you mentioned we were dancing together, and she heard me singing while we were dancing, and she said, "You should sing with the band." And so I surprised her for her birthday. I think it was around her 75th birthday, and then the band, George G. Swing Orchestra, started asking me to sing with them on a regular basis, and then I started to do my own thing here and there and perform with the band, and took lessons. So it became a new chapter in the later part of my life.
And so now that I think you're on tour, right? You're promoting the new record and going out on the road and things like that. So
Yeah, yes, I did. I did do a sort of a mini tour, and I think probably that leg of the tour culminated with performing with the Savannah Jazz Orchestra at the Savannah Jazz Festival. So that was one of my favorite gigs of the year. So that was a good time.
cool. So when you were a kid, though, did you already have interest in music from your parents? Tell us a little bit
You know,
about that.
I didn't sound like my father, so I didn't think anybody wanted to hear me sing. And then I just realized at some point that everybody has their own distinct way of expressing themselves, sometimes through song, and that there are actually some people out there who might want to hear my way of expressing myself, and so I just played to that.
And so I'm always curious as to what. So obviously you had to
You
actually study
froze.
jazz
I'm not sure if you
vocals,
can hear
right?
me.
You still there? Yes, you know.
Now you're there.
Um, who were your influences? Because obviously you don't just wake up and be able to sing jazz. So how did you learn? Because a certain vocabulary, there's a certain way of singing jazz. So tell us about that. Like, how did you get into that and learn that?
Yeah, I mean, so the first sort of jazz influence was Nat King Cole, and that my father used to listen to Nat King Cole records around the house, and so that's sort of where I first heard that style of singing. Later on, I heard contemporary singers like Harry Connick Jr. But what really sort of set me off and got me excited was hearing Joe Williams, because as a swing dancer, like just the way he was swinging and the way he moved with the Basie band was just allowed me to feel like this is where I want to do. This is the groove that I want to sort of fit into. So, and then I discovered other singers along the way, Mark Murphy and others. So
Yeah, so that's interesting. So, did you take vocal lessons? Or did you learn by ear mostly, or both?
Yeah, I think it was a little bit of both, but I took vocal lessons because I wanted to make sure that when I showed up with the cats, that I was able to contribute to what we were creating. So,
and what about let's talk a little bit about before we get to the record, because I want to talk about the record and the songs on the record and how that all came together. As far as like scatting or vocalese, where how was that for you? Because that seems to be something that not everybody can do. You do it very well. Tell us a little bit about that.
I think I first heard vocalese, John Hendricks, big fan of his. Also, another huge influence, Bobby McFerrin. I don't know if he necessarily did a lot of vocalese because he does so much of his own thing, but just in terms of being able to go in different directions and flow with the music, that's probably where I got it from. And I get excited when I both hear musicians and saxophone players and trumpet players, but also when I sort of hear singers playing over those lines that I've heard and I've gotten used to, and then you hear the singer sort of do a vocalese version of that, and you're like, oh, and then the lyrics sort of connect with what you imagined the trumpet player, the saxophone player was trying to express, and it's just like it all comes together. So
cool. So how did this album here come together, which is fantastic, by the way? Congratulations on a wonderful record. But tell us about how the project came together and how you chose everything that's on it, all the songs, your choices there.
Yeah, I was talking to David Gibson, a trombone player and a great arranger, and George G, who I did the album with. I think about a year or two before we actually recorded the project, we wanted to sort of get together because we had been doing a lot of those songs over the years in New York, and we wanted to come together and do put all the pieces together in one album, and then maybe add a couple more. And we added a few other songs that we hadn't been recording, and what we ended up doing was actually recording two albums in the session. And so we recorded this album, Our Day, with the George G Swing Orchestra with arrangements by David Gibson. And then we also recorded Winter Wonderland that George G put out, which was the holiday album that Dave also arranged. So 'tis the season, so you should probably go listen to that as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, absolutely. So as far as the selection of tunes, did that take a while? Because not all of these are classic jazz standards. There's different, songs here. And, of course, you put your own jazz spin on those. So tell us a little bit about the song selection. Our Day Will Come, for example, is the first one on there.
Yeah, I think I'm trying to think of when we did a lot of the songs I mentioned we were doing them over the years, and so it's hard to say when they got added to sort of our repertoire, but because we had a vibe, I knew they would fit together. And then there were two songs that I added right before the session because I wanted to do something a little bit different, and that was the Red Clay on the Red Clay with Freddie Hubbard tune with lyrics by Mark Murphy, and the other one was Moanin'. And so David wrote new arrangements for those, and then we put those on to things that we've been doing for a while, and they just fit in, I think, seamlessly, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, the album flows. It's a great listen all the way through. I really love the arrangement to Moanin'. That's a really cool arrangement.
Yeah,
and
Dave was he was a little nervous. He took some chances there. He was a little nervous about how it was going to be received, but like everybody loved it, and I think it's a great did a great job.
Because everybody's, of course, familiar with the Lambert Hendricks Ross version of Moanin'. So yeah, I was curious when I saw it on there. I was like, oh, I wonder how this is going to sound. I listened to it through, and I was like, wow, this is really cool. It's different, of course. Yeah, I really enjoy it. And then I really also almost like being in love, that low learner tune.
Yeah.
That's awesome. But yeah, it's a great listen all the way through. So you recorded this at a place called GB's Juke Joint. What is that? Where's that at? Or
Yeah, that is in. Sorry, one second. I just got stuff popping up on my computer. That is in Queens, and that's G. Bluey, is affectionately known as Glenn Forrest, is the engineer there, and it's his studio. And I actually met Glenn through Ian Hendrickson Smiths. So, two of my albums are on the Rondette label, and that was Ian Hendrickson Smith's label and Adam Scone's label. And I think at least one of those were recorded at G. Bluey as well. And so not G. Bluey, but GB's Juke Joint. So I love the vibe of that place. I love how Glenn has care for the sound and the way he sort of puts things together. And so I wanted to make sure that we recorded it there as well.
it sounds great. So what was the process in the studio? I'm always curious as to how did you record it? Did you just go in there and you went through the tunes a couple of times? Was everything sung live? Did you come back and do some tracking after the fact? I'm always just curious as to how
There might have been a little bit of tracking for the newer tunes, but we basically recorded them within 2 days, back to back. So those two albums back to back, and there probably weren't a lot of second takes. A lot of it was first takes, one time through. And again, just because we had been doing those songs for so many years together, it just flowed and felt right.
So it's pretty quick. I mean, one day basically to make this record and one day for the other one.
Yep.
Wow, that's pretty cool. So you pretty much just came in and just everything came together pretty quickly, and everybody probably knew the songs already, so there wasn't any kind of like, oh, we got to stop and figure out the ending or any of that kind of stuff.
No, it was all everybody knew what they had to do. They knew the assignment.
So what about as far as touring goes or playing live? How is that, or how are you bringing this onto the stage? I guess is a good question.
Yeah, so it's as you can imagine, it's hard to put a nonnet together as much as I would probably want to. So I definitely did a couple of shows with George with the original group. I did a few shows in other places, including in Austin with Mike Sailors, who had been in the group many years ago with his nonnet in Austin. And then a lot of the tunes, we did arrangements for the 17-piece band and I performed that with the Savannah Jazz Orchestra. And so what I try to do when I go out and perform is I try to make sure that I maintain the spirit of the tunes, even if I don't have the same sort of specific setup for the performance. So.
And is that something you send out to the band so that the arrangements are similar, or how do you pick that up live if something's not the same?
Usually,
it's pretty close.
Yeah, it's pretty close. I mean, there's some of them that I might just call a head chart if I'm doing like a quartet, but for some of the tunes, just because the musicians that I fortunately get to play with are just so talented that I don't have to have arrangements for everything. Here in Chicago, I get to play with I'm playing with him soon with George Flutis, Dennis Carroll, Joey Scotch. And we just make it flow or make it sound a different kind of interesting. So,
and so as far as like, did you ever do any kind of jam sessions? I have some friends who are interested in singing jazz, and we have a jam session here in Birmingham, Alabama, where people can get up and they can sing. And were you involved in any of those when you were first starting out?
Yeah, when I first started out, the first thing that I did was before I went to jam sessions, I just needed to know that I could, sing in public, because I hadn't done it, and so I went and I was living in New York at the time, and I learned one of the first songs I learned was "Fly Me to the Moon," and I would go to different karaoke bars and just sing it at different karaoke bars across around New York, because I didn't want to sing the same song in front of the same crowd every time. So I just wanted to just do that. And then after I got comfortable doing that, then I started to go to jam sessions. In fact, one of the first jam sessions I went to was at the Linux Lounge, and Patience Higgins, who's on the album, was leading that jam session back in the day. So a lot of it came full circle.
And did you find those jam sessions challenging as far as I talked to a lot of different jazz musicians out here, and I was talking to a pianist the other day, Vladimir Shafronov, who's a jazz pianist from Leningrad. Anyways, he was in New York City, and he said that, he still does jam sessions sometimes, but he finds that a lot of singers will come up and they don't know what key to sing in, or how did you? Because you have a baritone voice, right?
Yeah.
You have to figure out your range. So how was that when you came up onto the stage, as far as to let the band know, hey, we're going to do this. This is the tempo I want to do it in. This is the key I want to do it in. Was that something you made sure that you had all set ahead of time?
So I was fortunate. I mentioned that I was a swing dancer, and so I was around musicians already, and I was a big fan of George G. Swing Orchestra, and so I was around the cats, and so like I didn't want to show up not ready, and so which is why I did sort of the circuit and then the second circuit from a jam session standpoint, and so I observed. I'm a good listener, and I observe. You can see what's happening. You can see when the musicians are excited about either the song selection or the tempo that's being called, or the sort of frustration around particular keys not being the right ones or not being known in some cases. I didn't want to be that guy, and so I wanted to make sure that when I showed up, I brought my version of fun, and I made sure the musicians have fun. And that's what I think about when I play today. Like when I play today, I love playing in front of audiences, but I love playing with musicians, especially some of the most talented ones in the world. So,
and so that's a lot of so figuring out where your voice fits on specific tunes, because I sing, but I sing mostly blues tunes, and usually I can fit it. When you're going to sing a jazz tune, for example, "Our Day Will Come" or "Suddenly" or "Moanin'," are those typical keys, and you fit your voice in there, or do you really focus on where is my range, that kind of thing?
I for those particular tunes, again, Dave Gibson is one of my best friends, and when I first started singing with the band, he was just starting with the band, and he was arranging things specifically for me, and so it was never a question, at least in the band, on like what key might work best. Like he knew what key was going to work best for me, because he understood where I fit in, and so it was basically make sure you know the lyrics and the vibe and get it done. So
right. So what recommendations would you have for aspiring jazz singers, male vocalists specifically, because everybody has their own range. You have Mark Murphy, who could just go, way off kind of, and then you've got Big Joe Williams and these other guys. So what kind of advice would you give them as far as,
I'm doing a show. My next show at Winners Jazz Club is going to be a tribute to Joe Williams and Mark Murphy, and I have to remind myself that Mark Murphy has a very different range than I have, and so be careful which songs that I choose to sing on that day, because I want to make sure that I'm interpreting those songs in a way that works for me, and not necessarily that way Mark would interpret them. Even though it's a tribute to him, you still have to make sure you understand where you fit into the song and what your limitations are as far as your range goes. Because I said before, there's certain people who want to hear what I have to say, and they want to hear it in the right key. So.
Right. Yeah. So that makes it a little challenging. So cool. Well, what I want to do now is show you a couple of jazz records I've got here. Some of my favorite vocalists, and probably you're going to know them all. But just to give your your thoughts, quick feedback of people that watch this channel, it's kind of a vinyl record channel. So it's always fun to. Do you collect records, by the way? That's a question I always have to ask.
I do, but I have to admit, like it's so easy to turn on music that I am not, I don't always put them on my my vinyl, my record player. So I want to start doing it more because I have a couple that I have, but I haven't even opened them yet. So.
Oh, really? So, yeah. So, well, let's take a look at some of these. And we just talked about this guy, Big Joe Williams. Count Basie
Yeah,
plays, Big Joe Williams sings.
yeah,
So he's a pretty big influence on you, right?
yep.
So what do you think about him as far as his
In
unique
fact,
sound?
the first album that I did with George was John Dokes Sings, George G Swings, which was an homage to that album.
Right.
Yeah.
Here's one that everybody knows, Johnny Hartman.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about him. This is a famous record, of course, with Coltrane.
It's funny when I think about Johnny Hartman, I respect him and that album so much that I heard it probably I heard it a while ago, and then I just stopped listening to it. I didn't listen to it for many years because I was like, it's so distinctive that I didn't want it to influence like who I became. And so I wanted to make sure that I found my own voice first before I then went back and tried to approach like those songs. And now I've learned most of the songs on that album now, and I've done some Johnny Hartman, John Coltrane tribute shows. But I'm glad that I actually waited to like enjoy them fully later when I actually found my own style and found my own voice. So, but it's amazing. It's just
Yeah, and that's interesting. How do you think that a vocalist does that? Because obviously, you listen to all your favorite singers, and then you try to imitate them somewhat so that you can learn, how to phrase and do those things. And then how do you feel that you come to your own sound, your own type of style, so to speak?
yeah. It definitely takes listening to a lot of different vocalists. As a bass, it also like taking the lessons helped me because it allowed me to get a sense of like where I could go vocally and be comfortable, and in some cases uncomfortable, like where to take a chance here and there, and then once you have that framework, then making sure that you are putting yourself in a position to tell the best story. And so that's what I try to do. Like remember the story first, and then usually if you're approaching it from a story standpoint, your voice will come out if you resonate with the story and the songs that you choose.
Interesting. Yeah. So how you tell the story? That's a good motto there. All right. So everybody obviously knows this guy here, but Frank.
Yeah.
This is one of my favorites. No, no one cares. And were you a big Frank fan, or did you listen to a lot of his stuff? I mean,
I definitely did. I mentioned, "Fly Me to the Moon" was one of the first songs that I took on the road on the karaoke circuit, and of course a lot of his other songs. There's one song that I haven't actually sang in public yet that I think I still know the words to. Is that that torch song, that bar song, "One for My Baby and One for the Road." I really need to do that at some point. And Without a Song, those are two songs that I need to do.
he's got such a large discography with so much to pick from that it's hard not to. This right here was the first jazz album I ever listened to, which Louis Armstrong plays W.C. Handy.
Yeah.
And this was the album that pretty much turned me on to jazz. But Louis, of course, has his own. He was one that could take his own unique voice that wouldn't necessarily be considered a quote unquote great voice, but it's really a fabulous voice because it's so unique. Tell us a little bit about him.
And it laid the groundwork for so many different vocalists and what we do still today, just in how he took his phrasing from his trumpet playing and applied it to his own voice, and just the way he swings is just amazing.
Yeah, I love his Ella records where he sings with Ella, and you have that such a contrasting combination between his voice and hers.
Yeah, and when I think about my future projects, it will likely be a duet project in that same vein.
Oh, really? That's interesting.
Yep.
Yeah. Of course, we have to talk about him because,
Of course.
and this is one of my favorite records of his, the St. Louis. I like a lot of his early records too, but this is really a fantastic album with all these.
That's a great one. Another one that is one of my favorites is Nat King Cole Live at the Sands.
Okay.
That is just an amazing album. You get to hear him play piano, and you get to hear him sing, and just the interaction with the audience, the interaction with the band is just the energy level is just it's just unlike any other.
Yeah. Here's another one that even though some people may say he's not a strict jazz singer, but Bing Crosby, when you go back and this one I was pretty surprised by, and this album here, someone sent. I bought another record, and this came as a filler in the packaging, and I listened to it. I was like, this is pretty good. This is not a filler record.
Yeah.
So,
I think I probably saw Bing Crosby in cartoon reruns before I saw him. Maybe it wasn't even his voice, but like the cartoons imitating Bing Crosby before I actually saw Bing Crosby, who he was. But one of his songs that I would also love to learn is the song from High Society with him and Louis Armstrong.
Oh yeah, on the movie. What is that? That's yeah.
Yeah, I can't think of the name.
I can't remember. I can't think of it either. We got only a couple more here. This guy's not really a jazz singer, but I still think it's worth bringing up just for his. Yeah.
So, and I don't know. Do we say that he's not a jazz singer?
Well, I mean, some people would say he's more of an R&B kind of blues, but I mean, I think he could be classified as jazz personally, but some people would say that he's kind of more of a pop, blues, R&B singer, but I love him. He's one of my favorites.
When I think about Cab Calloway, the thing that I take from him is stage presence, and like what people tend to get surprised about when they do see me performing on stage is that how much I move, and part of that is from me having a dance background. But I like to make sure that I'm bringing a lot of energy and making it entertaining for the audience and fun for the band.
So he's definitely one of those guys that you watch those old videos and they got guys jumping around and
don't have the hair that he does.
Yeah, you don't have exactly, or the coattails there that are. But he had guys doing leapfrogging each other. All he was definitely one of the originators of the stage show for sure.
Yep.
Two more to go. This one here, of course, we can't go away without talking about this record or these three.
Hottest group in jazz.
Any plans to do a trio like this, a vocal? It's
I would love to do it. I feel like that's a time commitment. that's a lot of activity. But I will be. Did he do doodling, or was it did Mark write doodling?
I don't know. I don't know who wrote that one.
Okay. I'm trying to think. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be doing the Mark Murphy thing, and I will be doing doodling. But I'm just thinking like of things that have a lot of lyrics, and there's just so many. They go so many different places. And I remember, I forget who introduced me. Jim Kruger, a comic book writer, introduced me to that group. So yeah, they're amazing.
Yeah, I think there's a reason why there's not that many records that are like that. There's not that many groups that are like that, is because it has to be very difficult to do what they did and do it as well as they did it.
Absolutely.
So it's not something that's very easy, that's for sure. And again, you just don't see it. So, well, baby, it's time to do another one. Finally,
oh gosh,
Mel Torme, which
with Marty Pott too.
Yeah. Anyway, a lot of great tunes on. This is one of my favorite ones of his because there are all these blues tunes like Gloomy Sunday, Body and Soul, Blues in the Night, you know, all those round midnight. Now that's another cool tune.
I need to think about a Mel Torme tribute show as well, just because he such an amazing vocalist. Speaking of vocalese and scatting, like he was amazing talent, and also an amazing writer, of course. And we did his Christmas song on the George G. Winter Wonderland album as well. So
yeah, great vocalist. I was gonna pull a Mark Murphy out, and I forgot to put him in the list because I've got several of his. One of the songs that really strikes me is that "Jump for Joy" song. That's and you listen to that, and it's just incredible. So.
The one that I'm debating that I don't think I'm going to be able to tackle in time for the show is Boplicity. That's a little bit much, I think.
Yeah, that's wow. And
but I will be doing Stolen Moments probably, and I mentioned Doodlin', and he did. Oh gosh, I can't think of the name of the song that he did, but it'll be in the show. So.
Are you going to record that show? Is that going to be on YouTube, or is that going to be recorded for?
No, that one won't be recorded. It'll be a Winners Jazz Club, February 27th, but it will not be recorded.
And tell us about what you have coming up. So, what are your future projects? You spoke a little bit about maybe doing another record with a female vocalist, right?
Yeah, the my first album, when I was playing early with George, Hillary Gardner was the singer as well in the group. And we keep talking about getting together to do a duet album. And so hopefully we can make that happen in the next couple of years. So.
Okay, so that would probably be your next project. Now, what about upcoming shows? You're going to be doing Christmas, different things?
I'll be doing some private Christmas shows. I'll be doing a show this week with the George G. Swing Orchestra this Sunday at Swing 46, and a few privates, and then the next one will be the Winners Jazz Club in February.
Cool. And what's the scene? I'm just curious what the scene is in Chicago for jazz. Are there a lot of jazz jams to go to there? A lot of things going on?
Not sure how many jams there are, but I mean, as far as places to go, there's Jazz Showcase, there's Andy's, there's Green Mill, Winter's Jazz Club, and there's a place that I like to go to, and I sit in sometimes, a place called Le Piano. That's a little bit further uptown, and one of my friends, Ben Patterson, plays there on a regular basis, so I stop by and we do a little bit of jamming.
Cool. And then this right here, these are limited, correct? Aren't these? I think I read there are 100 of these, or how many?
They're probably about 40 something left.
Okay, well, hopefully we can get some more of those. People will pick those up. It's a fantastic record, and again, congratulations on a wonderful record. There's not very many. First of all, there's not very many jazz vocalists. Period.
Yeah.
And there's not very many male jazz vocalists because the women usually, there's just more women doing it.
Yep.
And so why do you think that is? Why do you think there's not as many male jazz vocalists? Any idea?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't. I mean, I think maybe just in general, there are probably fewer males who have pursued singing as a career. Not sure why, but I'm happy that I'm able to put things out that hopefully will last for a while. So.
Right on. Well, thank you for coming on the channel, John, and thanks for talking about your record. And I wish you well. And hopefully, I think the more exposure you get, this is a fantastic record. So I'm really happy that you put it out. I was excited when I saw it. I was like, oh, cool, we got another male jazz vocalist. Let's check this out. I don't remember how I came across your record, if it was on one of the jazz websites that I go to, because I read all the magazines and I go on all the jazz websites and I always look for new releases. So somewhere I saw that that your record was out, and I was like, oh, I need to check this out. You don't see very many vocalists, and when I listened to it, I was like, oh, this is really good. We got to get this one. So
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me, man.
yeah, well, take care. I'm going to go ahead and stop this here, and then let me